What is up, everybody? My name is Ryan Braley, and welcome to our Reflections podcast. I'm here at Central, this wonderful church community in the greatest city in Minnesota, Elk River, the confluence of the Elk and the Mississippi. It's a great place. Hey, today I wanted to talk with you guys. Actually, I've got a 5-part series in my brain, and I think it'll be 5 parts. We'll see. But I want to talk with you about rites of passage and the 5 predominant messages that are kind of baked into almost all rites of passages across time and across geography and space and history. And but several years ago, I was at a youth conference in Minneapolis area, and this crew came out from Fuller. They were a part of the Fuller Theological Family and Youth Ministry Department, and they did like a conference on youth ministry. It was back when I was doing youth ministry, and it was awesome. And one of the guys, I forget his name, he mentioned in an offhanded way how in the Western world we have this absence of rituals or rites of passage. And it caught my attention because like, what is he talking about? And so I went up to him afterwards and we chatted for like a long time, and I just picked his brain. I love the things he was saying. A rite of passage, in case you don't know, like you're like, what is Ryan talking about? It's this thing that's been prevalent in tribal cultures for a long, long time. It's this ritual or event, usually in the life of a young person, that kind of marks a significant life change or milestone in the life of a young person, or even not just young people, but it's sort of all throughout life. It could be any kind of milestone. And it's when you create an event or a ritual, an experience around that. Could be childbirth, could be puberty, marriage, death. There are all kinds of rites of passage. It's a ritual that marks a passing of the time. That's why it's called a rite of passage. And in the Western world, whereas in most places around the world and throughout history, these cultures have a time and a place when, specifically when kids are around the age of around 12, 13, maybe even a bit earlier than that, they have this thing where they take the kid usually out of the community, oftentimes into wild places or places where they're alone or these kinds of things, and then they come back after a certain amount of time, and then they're told, hey, you're no longer a young person, you're now an adult. And they come back into the community, so the community absorbs them back into this larger system, and they begin to then behave and function in ways that are empirically different. So they no longer behave like a kid. They're given tasks to perform that only adults can perform. And that's like, hey, you're no longer that, you're now this. It's this beautiful marking of time. And so kids and then while they're out there, by and large, there are these 5 messages that these young people get in order to come back and have sort of this wisdom and insight of what it means to be a full flourishing. They're not quite there yet, but they're on their way to becoming a full flourishing adult. And it was incredible because I'm like, this is glaringly absent from the Western world and in America. I, for example, never had any kind of rite of passage as a young boy. I mean, I think I got my driver's license, and that was celebrated by I went and drove around. Or when you turn 21, we have this cultural one where people go out and they go to the bar and they get drunk. And these are not like really meaningful or like rooted rites of passages. It isn't like it's a great thing to go out and get drunk with your buddies when you're 21. It's not like you don't like get any kind of profound messaging from that. But they're absent from the Western world, and it's a problem. So Joseph Campbell was once asked what happens when there's no rites of passages in our cultures, and his answer was, well, we get the news of the day, youngsters not knowing how to act in a civilized manner because what you're left with is a self-rendered initiation. In other words, what he's saying is that kids who become adults without a communal rite of passage grow up without knowing how to behave as adults because no one's taught them. They often will initiate themselves. So again, you have things like, let's go out and get drunk at the bars, which, it doesn't really help them assimilate into adulthood. And so you have this like self-initiation, which young people take on, and it's not their fault. I would say it's the community's fault. We've let these things go, and I would argue we need to bring them back and try to like find a way to recreate them for our youth today. So if you come to Central, we kind of have these in part. We have several rites of passages, whether it's 3rd grade Bible reading class that we do, where we try to make that this really great ritual and experience. We have 5th grade First Communion and these kinds of things. But anyway, here's the deal. So I'm doing a doctorate of ministry at Fuller myself now. I'm actually right at the end. I'm writing my thesis. My thesis is on trying to recapture these ancient rites of passages and a theology of ritual, why it's important, and how we can, as a church, adopt some more, modern versions of a rite of passage and why they're important for our young people. And it begins with this community. How can we make space where the community sends the young person out with our blessing, and out there, wherever out there is, they are exposed to these deep, mysterious truths about the universe, which I'll go through in a minute. And then they come back and they're told, hey, now you're this, you're an adult now, and here's kind of what it's like to be an adult. We help them as their community. Okay, so there are, researchers have found there are 5 predominant messages that are present in most of these cultural rites of passage around the globe and throughout time. And I'm going to give you one each week. Here's the first one. So these young men and women go out of the community, they go into the wild. Generally, they come back, but while they're out there, one of the embodied truths that they learn while they're out there, one of them, the first one, is this: life is hard. This is just the way that life is, which is hilarious to me because I'm a parent. I got 4 kids. And when your kids are little, parents do everything they can to make life easy for their children. From putting those little bumper pads on the corners of furniture, locking cupboard doors, sanitizing the pacifier 3, 4, 5 times, because it fell on the floor, which are great things. I mean, you keep the kid alive for sure. But as they get older, we do very little to let the kid encounter this idea that life is hard. And we think we're doing the kid a favor by making life easy for them. And in some ways we are, of course. I mean, again, don't let the kid die. But in many ways, we're actually not helping the kid by not exposing them to this deep truth that life is hard. Kids need to hear the message that, hey, listen, life is hard. It just is. It's how it is. Life involves pain and suffering, disappointment, struggle, and general discomfort. Now, and the question then is okay, that's the truth. So now what? And so there's this great writer. He's a Franciscan priest. He writes this about these rites of passages and this idea that life is hard. He says, hey, listen, all great spirituality is about what we do with our pain. So the first lesson of initiation was to teach the young man, or woman in this case, not to run from pain. And in fact, to not to get rid of any pain until he's first learned its lessons. Because here's the truth. As I mentioned in the Dragon podcast a few weeks ago, or whenever that was, embedded in our pain is often a message that we can learn from. So look, life is hard. That's just how, I'm sorry, it just is. That's how it goes. And embedded within this struggle and tension and discomfort or even pain or suffering, there's a lesson that can be learned that can develop us as young men and women, that can deepen our character, our fortitude, our grace, our empathy in the world. And in these initiation ceremonies, we find this universal presence of an emphasis on struggle, physical struggle, emotional, social. When the young man or woman is the initiate is out in the wild, they're encountering in an embodied way this idea that, man, life is hard. And unfortunately, our modern obsession and drive to avoid pain or to numb pain or disengage from pain does us a deep disservice because we never understand the value of looking deep within our pain for what the message might be in there. So I think the question, and I'll end here, and we'll do the next 4 in the next following 4 weeks. I'll unpack them a bit more. But listen, life is hard. So now what? What might our pain or our struggle or our tension teach us if we listen to it? And anytime this week, whatever you're doing, if you encounter pain or discomfort or sadness, I would encourage you, hey, stay with that emotion or that feeling just for a bit. Now, if you cut your finger off with a buzzsaw, don't stay with that pain. I don't mean that. But obviously other kinds of pain or discomfort. What might the message be in that? What might it reveal to you? Because at least part of the point of life is to be conscious and to be awake and to be alert, to be present with our feelings, our emotions, and life as it is, not life as we wish it to be. So life is hard. That's the simple fact of life. And now what? What will you do with it? What will you do with your pain? What is your pain or your discomfort trying to tell you? How can it grow you and mature you into a deeper, sort of more loving human being and adult in this case? Okay, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and then come back next week as we unpack number 2. But number 1 is life is hard. All right, bless you. Peace.
Hey, if you enjoy this show, I'd love to have you share it with some friends.
And don't forget, you are always welcome to join us in person at Central in Elk River at 8:30, which is our liturgical gathering, or at 10 o'clock, our modern gathering. Or you can check us out online at clcelkriver.org. Peace.